and welcome to Labor Talks. I'm your host, Laurie Gruber, and today's special guest is Emily Berge. And welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you coming, especially out in the slosh and the slop of
Yes.
our December and January and February roads.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about who Emily Berge is.
I am married, and I have my husband Mike, and we have two kids, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they go to the Eau Claire Public Schools, and we live on the north side of Eau Claire. We've been in Eau Claire for about 16 years, and on the north side for about 9 years or so. So yeah, we've lived here. Mike and I met at Stout and kind of made our way to Eau Claire and haven't really left, so it's been great so far. I'm a counselor. I'm a licensed professional counselor, so I have my master's degree in mental health counseling, which I also got at Stout, and got licensed, and then I've worked at various places, but now I own my own practice, so I've been doing that, which I really enjoy. Gives me the flexibility to volunteer at my kids' school and run and yoga and ski and I suppose
all the things to do in your personal life.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So
and what does your husband do?
He works at Presto. So
okay.
He's an industrial designer by that's his degree, and he worked for that, and then he was promoted last year to be innovation manager at Presto. So
nice.
He's the guy that thinks outside the box.
The creativity.
Oh yes, he's amazing. Yep, he can look at something and figure it all out. So very creative.
And you own, like you said, you own your own private practice now. How does that differ over working with the clinics in town?
Well, I like to do. It kind of came down to management in a way, like owning your own practice. Like I get to decide what type of people I want to see, how much I get to charge. I have more decision-making control, which I really like compared to the clinics or other places I worked. And sometimes I feel like I have a really strong strong ethics, and I adhere. As a counselor, I have to adhere to certain ethical guidelines as well. And sometimes when I was looking for a larger business, sometimes they were more about profits, unfortunately, which I know is part of business, but sometimes we'd hit heads a little bit, and I'm like, well, but this kid needs this, but they're just a slightly different focus. So I like being able to work, and I get to prioritize the clients. And
set your own schedule.
Yeah, and the flexibility, yeah, yep.
And not feel like you have that person breathing down your neck thinking, okay, I need to do it this way because the clinic wants me to do it this way.
Exactly, yeah. I don't like to be micromanaged. I don't like a lot of people do, but yeah.
Some people like being told, go to work, do this.
Yes.
Okay, now you can punch out and go home.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are not
that
kind of person.
Yeah.
Now, human trafficking has become a major issue for Wisconsin and the Midwest states. I know that you've worked with at-risk and runaway youth. Do you see a way to combat this epidemic?
Yeah, I worked with at-risk youth. That's when I did AmeriCorps, so in between my undergraduate and graduate. So there was a year in between my schoolings there, and that was probably, 10 or 12 years ago. So it's been a while since I worked specifically with that population, but the at-risk, it's about, I think, building relationships with the kids, and I think to get behind, okay, so why is this happening? Look at the why. Parents try as hard as they can, obviously, but is there something, what else is going on in their lives? And because working with these kids, the parents were struggling too to communicate with their kids and things like that, or the community, there were some holes there as well. So look at the why it's happening, and then kind of fill in the blank. And sometimes the why, it's before, it's not just the day they were kidnapped. What stuff happened, whether it be our culture or, poverty or abuse. There's lots of alcohol and drugs and abuse, and so I guess look at the why, which I think that they're doing now.
Our company works with a program called Hang 10. It's a foundation down, Safe Surfing Foundation, which is a law enforcement foundation. that teaches parents how to communicate with their children about safe surfing on the internet.
That's important.
We have a program we also work with the Wisconsin International Union of Police Associations for fingerprint kits for kids. When we did a program with the grade schools for the kids to take that home so that their parents could sign their kids up to get these free kits, the kids would do it. We went to the middle school to ask them to take home the information about Hang 10, and they didn't do it. Part of that program is a whole list of the abbreviations that people use on the internet. We all know LOL means laughing out loud, but there were a lot of other ones like mother's looking over my shoulder and how about a private meet, you know, and if parents, I'm not saying they have to be Big Brother monitoring everything their kids do, but I had so many parents tell me their children weren't on the internet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could take my little Surface right here and pull up right now, and I bet you I'd find them. They may not be on yours. They're either at the library or at their friends, or how many kids nowadays have smartphones, and those smartphones have programs. These kids are so much more tech savvy than we were,
right?
Or we are even yet today.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if I want to know how to do something on my phone, I'll ask a niece or nephew.
Yeah, right.
But I think a lot of it too is parents are extremely busy trying to make sure that their kids have a better life than we had, that they don't have to work so hard. Personally, I believe kids will respect things if they have to work for them as well.
Yes, agreed, yeah.
But I think a big part of it is they're not up on everything their child is involved with. And somebody on the internet is making them feel
special. Yeah.
And that's drawing that kid out the doors and not talking about what's going on in their life.
Well, in adolescence, that's why I tell parents in my office, like, adolescence, the normal development is they kind of take a U-turn. They go away from parents. It's normal. It's how we're evolved as humans. We go away from our parents, but they eventually come back, you know, college age. But yeah, so you have that working against you too, that communication. Because kids are like, well, I'm not going to talk to my parents.
And their friends would tell them to jump off a cliff, and they do it.
Yes.
And we've got to find a way to gain back that trust and communication with the kids, so they don't think, oh yeah, well, I'm tired of all these stories about when you were young, kind of thing.
Yep. And then again, look at the developmental, like kids have the perception that nothing bad's going to happen to them. Again, very normal developmental thoughts, but it's really dangerous. I mean, for kids to put all these things together, and so bad things can happen.
So there's programs out there. It's just that we need to make sure that parents know those programs are available, so they can do it. And of course, the opioid epidemic has hit our area too. I would imagine it's also hit those teens. I've seen a lot of kids on the street, older kids, obviously not 14, 15, but maybe with, you know. What do you see as a way forward to combat this evil?
Well, again, I think backing it up and look at what's going on in the years leading up to why are they choosing to use? You know, are they not getting some need met, whether at home or at school or within their community? What are the holes in their life? Why are they choosing to use? It's often more complicated than just saying no. You know, I mean, that's part of it. And I think, like, I've role modeled with my kids of, like, offering them cigarettes and, like, okay, tell me no. You know, what are you going to say? So I think that's still really important.
Mom and Dad, what do your folks have in their medicine cabinet?
Yeah.
With the farm parties, with the pharmaceutical,
yep.
which is what kids call them when they just bring all of the medications that they can take from home and dump in a big bowl and share. Teaching them that that's not right.
Right. But I think it's more than that. That's definitely a huge part, but looking at the why are they choosing to go to parties like that? Why are they choosing to say yes? You know, what's going on there? And why do they feel comfortable going to their parents? Let's say they made a mistake and went to one of these parties and they're peer pressured into taking it. Do they feel comfortable calling their parents, asking for a ride home? Are they afraid that they're going to be shamed and yelled at, or in some families beat up? I mean,
right,
I'm told not to come home. Right, so yes, it's just a really big, complicated picture, unfortunately, but there's ways. It's just looking at closely.
And then, of course, there's bullying.
Yeah.
and then the kids that are sexting and don't realize that that can then turn around into a bullying issue.
Yeah.
Because when you're dating someone at 14 years old, chances are that relationship's not going to last the rest of your life.
Right.
And if you're going to send them a picture on your phone, and then they're not emotionally mature enough to know, oh, I can share this picture with all my friends.
I know. Well, and it gets the way their brain's at, they don't see anything bad about it. They like nothing bad's going to happen to them. Everything's
It can
just
ruin
fine.
their lives for the rest of their life.
And they're, again, the teenage brain, very impulsive. I mean, that's where suicide is so high with kids, because they don't really think, oh, my boyfriend broke up with me, I'm going to take some pills and overdose. Like, adults tend to think longer than just like that impulsivity. And same thing with sexting or going to a party and taking drugs. It's that impulsivity, which I think you have to work with, because that's a normal thing for kid brains. So how do you weed that?
Their brains at that point, to me, are so creative and looking for new experiences.
And that's why.
That's why they can come up with, well, let's drink hand sanitizer. It's 40% alcohol. And so many of them were committing suicide with that, not realizing that that's what that's doing. You know, we have to educate not only the kids but the parents, the whole society about being open and honest. Don't empower them with alcohol. Don't empower them. You're not their best friend, you're their parent.
Yeah, boundaries and limits. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Yeah.
My husband and I, we couldn't have kids, but we have 8 godchildren, and they all have spent time at our house. And one of my nieces now is grown up, and she came back and said, one of the most important lessons you ever taught me, Auntie, was don't say an empty sorry. Think about your words before you say them. You know, if you need to apologize, you need to apologize, but know why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's builds integrity and character. Yeah,
a lot of communication.
Yep.
Being part of the medical field, do you see where the opioid epidemic has come from the medical field? Not in psychology. I'm saying, I mean, I've had multiple surgeries, and the first thing they want to do is give you prescriptions for drugs. I
agree. I've worked, when I was given my hours, I need 3,000 hours to be licensed, so that's basically 2 years of, it's kind of like a residency for being a counselor. So I worked in the ER at Sacred Heart, and so I'd see a lot of people, and so I would see the worst case scenarios of people that were prescribed painkillers after a surgery, and then they got hooked on it, and they would become, because their tolerance would go up, and they would take more and more to get the same effect, and pretty soon then they run out, because there is limits that way, but people still will take a bunch because they feel like they need more, and then they start withdrawing and they get suicidal or bad things happen. So yeah, I do think, and I think a lot of area doctors do take responsibility for that, but I think there's improvement that could be done as well. Like, it doesn't need to be the first thing.
Well, in the last surgery I had a shoulder rotator cuff surgery. Instead of giving me the drugs, which I'm more than happy that they didn't give me any drugs, they did a block. But then that mandates you having to stay in the hospital for at least a day and a half. And there are a lot of people that don't have appropriate or the right kind of insurance to cover that. So in their cases, it's then give me the prescription. But then we need to educate our community on places where they can take those drugs to safely just get them destroyed. So they're not sitting in your medicine cabinet where some child can take them. And just because someone gives you a prescription doesn't mean you have to take it.
Right. I agree. And there's lots of other options. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very beneficial with anxiety and pain management. I mean, there's lots of different, you can go to a counselor to do those things, but you could also look online. You know, there's YouTube videos out there now, there's books. I mean, it takes more energy than just popping a pill, which I get, but
I'm also a big proponent for deep tissue pain massage therapy.
Oh yeah.
It's the thing that's helped me the most with my back and things like that, and you don't need drugs for it.
Right? Yeah. It's perfect. Or exercise. It's huge too. I mean, research shows exercise is just as effective as medicine for antidepressants and anti-anxiety. So it's
take a walk outside and breathe.
Yeah. 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 I have a whole cycle, cognitive behavioral therapy cycle I go over a lot. So it all affects our thoughts and our moods and our behaviors and our physical reactions, it's all connected. So if we can go for a walk, so our behaviors, that will kind of just do the switch into, it just helps us an upward spiral, you know, get us to a place where we want to be.
Rather than, you know, and this time of the year, especially in places like Wisconsin where it's cold, we don't have very long days, people aren't getting the sun they need either.
Right.
And there are vitamins they can take that will help.
Yes,
and
or lamps.
And knowing, or lamps. And the other thing is knowing people they can talk to. Biggest thing is they need to know that everybody's there for them versus bottling it all up.
I agree.
Nobody cares.
Yes. Meaningful relationships is huge. Even just like going to a yoga class or meditation, where there's research on that too, where even if you don't talk to anyone, but if you're in a room full of people, that has a positive impact on your mood and behaviors and thoughts. Yeah, just getting outside your house and doing things. Yeah.
And being in an area of, obviously I'm married to a robotics machinist who works second shift.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? When you see working families, you're going to get the people that work the shift work.
Yep.
And that's going to affect their ability to cope too. If they're never see the sun, they go to work in the dark, they come home in the dark. You know, they don't get to see a lot of people other than who they're working with. You know, there's got to be an outlet for them.
Agree. Yeah, I work with a lot of nurses, and same thing. They do work second shift and long shifts, and there's days they don't see sun.
Give me some vitamin D.
That's why, having coping skills and having lots of different things to do to those protective factors.
Instead of being dragged down. You are a volunteer with Indivisible, correct? Can you tell us about what that is?
Sure. Well, Indivisible started a little over a year ago, and that's when I got involved. It was about a year ago or so. And it's basically, it's a grassroots organization, so there's really no strict management system or anything, there's no bylaws. It's very just people run. And it's really encouraging people, citizens or not citizens, to be involved with their government. So,
as far as attending meetings?
Attending meetings.
Volunteering or?
Calling our representatives. And Indivisible tends to be more on the national level. So, like calling, Ron Johnson or Tammy Baldwin or Ron Kind when there's a bill coming up. So part of it is education, which I know you're a fan of. So what's going on in our government, and then here's what you can do about it, And to call our representatives, because that's why they're there. They represent us, so they should know, hopefully, that's the whole point of this, is of our government, is we elect them and they fight for us.
To listen to us.
Yes. So it's just, about that. So civic engagement, really.
If someone would like to become involved with Indivisible, how would they do that?
That's a good question. We have a Facebook presence, and then there's a website. So if you just someone Googles Eau Claire Indivisible, I'm sure it will come up. It's really it's a good group of people.
And I would think that it gets them starts getting them civically involved. With, rather than being apathetic. That it doesn't pay for me to vote for anybody because they're never going to listen to me. This is a way to start getting them involved, so then they can hopefully then turn around and maybe run for office. You just painted my story right there. That's exactly what happened to me. Because you are going to be running for the Eau Claire City Council in the 1st District. Right?
Yes.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing Eau Claire?
I'm running for Eau Claire City Council District 1, which is the north side, and I think citywide, I feel like Eau Claire is on this cusp, and maybe they've already, maybe it's beyond the cusp, but they're developing a lot. So I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains within the city, and I've already kind of seen that across. Some people want to kind of hang on to the small town Eau Claire community, which is a lot of great things. And other people are really excited about the arts and the new music fest and this whole, new restaurants downtown and
Veterans Walk.
The Veterans Walk.
The new Veterans Monument things that they're proposing.
Oh downtown, right by that. Yep. Yeah, so with that growth, I think there's going to be disagreement, and people don't always like change, which I get,
don't like what they don't understand.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a challenge, is But it goes back to just really listening. Sometimes we get really stuck on, our ideas and our like, well, this is how it needs to be. And well, arts are, growth is great. So let's, and arts, the Confluence Project, it needs to happen. Well, which is great. It's going to bring a lot of great things to Eau Claire, but there are probably valid concerns about it. And listening to that, don't just get stuck on your side, but really listening to what people have to say. Because usually it's in the middle, because there are going to be challenges with that and other things with our city. So I think that's going to be a challenge.
Are there any particular things that you see that you're passionate about helping Eau Claire?
I think, I feel like there can be more public involvement in the city decisions. I've just kind of there was something that happened in our neighborhood, a development that was going on, and development is great, but I saw my neighbors get really frustrated. They had concerns about the development because they were going to take down a lot of trees, it sounded like, and it's going to be kids walk by there to go to school, so they're in the construction. So, but people didn't really know what to do. Like, they had these concerns, but they didn't know how to go about getting them addressed. So, and I watched that play out this summer, and so I think that can be better, like making it easy for people to share their concerns and to be involved. And I think our representatives can do a better job, or, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, make sure that people know, okay, this is what's going on in our neighborhoods on the north side. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any concerns? And again, not necessarily that you're against every development, but what are your concerns? Let's talk about this. Let's have a dialogue. So, yeah, I think that can be improved as well. Having it kind of be a bridge between City Hall and, I'll be representing District 1, the north side. So, bringing the concerns to City Hall, but also what's going on in City Hall that people should know about.
So that it's communicated both ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, we've got a good amount of homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Eau Claire, more than I've ever seen coming into town. I know that they cannot get into the shelters if they're not sober.
Mm.
Is there anything that we can do, or a way forward that you see where we can help those people, especially with what your career is?
Right. Yeah, that's tough. When I worked in the ER, I would do psych consults in the ER. So nurses and doctors would call me in if they had someone that was under the influence of drugs or alcohol or suicidal or bipolar. I wasn't sure what I was going to work with when I got there, and people, if they needed help with alcoholism or they were under the influence, like a lot of times they would need a down payment to get into treatment centers. These people don't always have $1,000 laying around to get help, and so it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, to have a warm place to stay and you need to be sober, it's like, okay, well, it's just a good question to ask.
And obviously, Eau Claire, Wisconsin is going to have a good section of the year where it's too cold for anybody to be outside.
Yeah,
yeah. Sub-zero temperatures and things like that.
Right, it's life and death.
I know we have some really good shelters in town,
mm-hmm.
and it's not like they aren't trying to do everything they can to help everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that was one of the restrictions,
mm-hmm.
is that they have to be sober to be
mm-hmm.
able to come in. And
mm-hmm. So I think having a sit-down conversation and talking about that, like, what are our options? Yeah, ideally you'd be sober. Yes, that would be ideal, but that's not going to happen. People don't go ideal always.
And obviously the city doesn't want to enable them.
Right.
And yet, on the other hand, I would hate to come up to someone in the park that's gone because they froze to death outside.
I know. It's really sad.
So.
I know. It's a tricky situation. I know.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to make sure our viewers know who you are and where you want this city to go?
Well, I think, as a counselor, I feel like I would bring a lot of skills, and more than skills, just values to the city council. I really value listening and advocating and understanding, I guess, is a big thing. Again, not getting stuck on one person's view, but really listening and understanding. I think too, I've worked with individuals in individual counseling, but I also work with families and couples. I've worked with businesses between supervisors and employees, or even different employees. So I know how to work in difficult situations where people are not getting along, and that's putting it nicely sometimes. And I know how to facilitate that. I know how to get people to at least start talking and listening to each other, whether it be a supervisor and an employee, or a husband and a wife, you know, a teenage son and their mom. You know, I've worked with those situations, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and I feel like that's really beneficial. If I could bring that to city government, I feel like that could be a real big strength.
If you can get them to come to the table and have both sides and start listening to each other, then we'll have to get you up to a much higher level position, because so that the rest of the country starts listening and talking to each other.
Right, yes. Hey, yeah. I think it's needed at the local level all the way up.
All the way up. And if you can help other people to communicate, like with the Indivisible program, and bringing that in so that they know that if let's say you get elected, your door's open, they can come talk to you, and then you will be willing to go talk to the other people on the council and the boards and the committees. Well, we wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's today's program. My thanks to our viewing audience and to Emily, who made today's program possible. We wish you all the best. My thanks also to the folks working behind our cameras from Valley Media Works. They not only make the show possible, but they give us an outlet for our working family issues, our union issues. And a final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly, and you can also use your favorite search engines with keywords CVC TV or Labor Talks, and you can find us on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in today.
Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.